Hello and welcome back to Messages from Mars, hosted by Zozimus Agency. We're here with episode 7, bringing our expertise from our fellow Zozies to your ears. My name is David Wilson, and I will be your host. In today's episode, we'll be catching up with a member of our digital team, Jay Joseph, to talk about our team's strategy with regard to the updates on website cookies and utilizing ABM for our clients. Welcome to the podcast, Jay.
Hey, thanks for having me. Very excited to be on.
Yeah, so are we. Some good topics to talk about. So let's get started with ABM, otherwise known as account-based marketing. So for people who aren't familiar with the term, can you explain a little bit about what ABM is and why we think it's essential that B2B companies are using it?
Yeah, ABM. So, it's account-based marketing. Very literally, you're targeting the account that you're targeting for your campaign. So, an example is very often that we'll get a list of either specific companies or specific employees within a company and do our targeting based off of that. It's really interesting because what we're able to do is we're able to either identify individuals, for example, by title within a list of companies, or the individuals themselves. We might want to get in front of, CMO, procurement, something like that. So we're able to do that.
So if I'm trying to target, if I have my account-based list, right, here's my dream 100 companies or 1,000 companies that I'm going to target. I know that procurement, say, a big part of it, maybe a CMO is a part of it. So it sounds like I can target them, those job titles. Can I develop separate content for, say, the CMO versus the procurement department?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a limitation in that, at a certain point you get too specific, right? You don't want to be running, separate campaigns against, 50 or 100 people, right? But as long as you have a reasonably sized list, you can segment that out as many ways as you want to adjust the content or even, your bidding strategies, right? So often you might have, more senior sign off on something, but it's for people sort of mid-level that are actually, making the evaluation of the software, the product, whatever it is. So you could have a whole different set of content and much more awareness focused on those senior titles, while really trying to drive direct response of those mid-level titles. Yeah, so there's a lot of possibility.
So you touched on a couple of things there about list size and targeting. So what are the best practices that we utilize around ABM? Like what are the 2, 3, 4 best practices that we find that these are the keys to a successful ABM campaign?
2, 3, 4. I don't know if it's a best practice, but I think the number one thing to keep in mind is that there are longer lead times on this and less direct leads on this. Often it's not B2C. Somebody's not just gonna click an ad like the product, pull the trigger, right? There's going to be multiple stakeholders involved. These decisions are going to go back and forth quarters, right? So probably the number one thing to keep in mind is to make sure that you're covering everybody who is going to be a stakeholder on that decision, and that you let the campaigns run for enough time. If you typically close within 9 months, you're running that campaign 9 to 12 months before you're truly evaluating it. That doesn't mean that you can't, get a sense of how it's performing in the meantime. But at the end of the day, if you start today, you're probably on average not closing those accounts 9 months from now. So you have to have patience and, you have to have metrics along the way. So leads, contact rates, that kind of stuff in the interim. That would probably be one of the best practices, one or two.
So a follow-up question on that. So
Yeah.
it sounds like ABM is just another channel for reaching those customers you're trying to get after. So is it's supplementing, say, what a direct sales rep is doing or a field rep is doing on the phone or in person? Is it supplementing what you would do from an email standpoint that you would be emailing these? So is ABM just another channel that increases the likelihood of you like closing that account?
Yeah, exactly. Think of it synergistically. A lot of these purchase decisions, they're not going to be made because somebody saw a banner ad, clicked it, and decided, to drop $200,000 on a piece of software annually, right? These things take multiple channels. Obviously, your sales team has to be very involved. You want to have, thought leadership content. You want to have both the outbound and the inbound going strong. This is just email, as you mentioned, right? This is just another thing that's helping build your awareness, helping deliver key pieces of information to your target audience. But it wouldn't be, no, certainly not the only thing. One interesting stat that we found, this would be another one of those best practices and something really important to keep in mind. Usually, just because of the way that this stuff works, you're not going to see a lot of conversions. I mean, if you look at just your campaign metrics, they're probably going to look like they're performing fairly poorly. That's because the line to that purchase path really isn't very straight. So, when we look at click-through rates, conversion rates, conversion volume, probably not going to be that great. So one of the things that we use, we have a specialized partner that we use for this. They're actually able to place tracking on the website where they can pull the companies of people who visited, right? The same, basically they're using the reverse of the way they target these accounts to also look them up when they come to the website. And that's regardless of whether they clicked an ad or not. So what we've found is that on paper, looking at, conversion volume, conversion rates, cost per action, that kind of thing, these campaigns perform really poorly. But when we actually look based on that lookup pixel of the engagements on the website, and then when we get CRM data, and we integrate that data, when we look at the targeted accounts versus a control group, we actually see huge amounts of growth. We actually see things like 20, 30, 50% more performance against that exposed group than the unexposed. So you really got to, it's a more convoluted buyer journey. So you have to pull in more sources of data and really widen the way that you look at the impact of these campaigns.
I think that that's such a good point in that so many times in digital we focus on last click attribution.
Yeah.
But in this case with ABM, what we find is ultimately it's the business decision. It's someone's not going to see a banner ad, click through, and then make a 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure purchase, right? But they might download and read more information that informs that buying decision. And the CRM is the ultimate data source of truth, because we know we targeted these 100 companies, and we know that 15 of them became customers over the length of this campaign because we got the close won deals through the CRM. And that's the ultimate measurement or barometer of how successful the campaign was. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry, go on.
No.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, exactly. I mean, you and I, we've had these discussions, right? Where, we might start talking about something that we'd like to improve upon, streamline a workflow, whatever it is, right? We may have that conversation. We might not even get to it for a couple months. We might not even start evaluating vendors for it, for a couple quarters. That thing may not be purchased, for 12 months. So it's really important to widen the way you're evaluating the performance impact. Otherwise, you could very easily miss it.
Mm-hmm. You spoke a little bit about what we typically see for clients. Can you give some examples of some successful ABM clients with campaigns we run for clients? We know the data is proprietary, right? So obviously we're not going to share that part of it, but sort of this is the client's idea, this is what we did, and then just a general, this is sort of the results that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had one client in the med tech space. Actually, both my examples are going to be in the med tech space. But the first one, this was a few years ago. They were doing a really heavily sales outbound driven campaign, and they wanted to pair it up with some ABM. I forget if we brought it to them or they brought it to us. I think it was pretty collaborative. But anyway, we sort of went back and forth, and we said, all right, well, give us your top accounts for your sales team, and we'll run that campaign in tandem. I think it was a 3-month test. And this was like I said, right, from a conversion standpoint, I'm not sure it got any conversions, at least post-click attributable. It might have been one. But when we actually looked at that account list that we targeted based off their CRM data, versus the rest, right, we use the rest as a control, it was something like a 29% increase in leads from the targeted accounts versus the rest of them. So that was really powerful. They were thrilled with that. Another one we've been doing most recently, I'm blanking on the exact numbers, but it was something like a 60x 600x ROAS. I forget exactly what it was, but it's something absurd. They closed something like 60 accounts over the last 9 months. That wasn't fully our efforts. I mean, as we talked about, there's a lot of different people involved, a lot of different channels involved, a lot of different tactics involved. But when you look at their first quarter of running the campaign versus the most recent one, I think it was about double the number of closes versus where we started. And that really speaks to it, right? In the first quarter, you want to see things moving, but it wasn't until the second and the third quarter that the volume really saw that big uptick. So that was a really successful one as well.
Yeah, and I think that the sort of the two things that stand out for me is one is it's ABM, these are targeted accounts. These are typically large sales, right? It's not
Oh, they're
consumers, right?
huge.
So
Yeah.
being able to land 1, 2, 3 can make a big difference for companies revenue standpoint. But I think the other part is from all of our years working in sales and marketing, there's always this divide between the friction between a marketing department and a sales department, and sort of what's that quality of the leads. And it seems to me that when we use ABM and we start to see the results, the buy-in from the sales team becomes really good because it's impacting their bottom line and their sales. And so updated list, like, okay, now can you target these companies? Because now these are the new ones that are on my list. We seem to get a better synergy between marketing and sales when we have these ABM campaigns running. Is that fair?
Yeah, but yeah, great synergy. I mean, one of the things you see on the B2C side, not all the time, but it crops up. Lead quality. The partner that we use, very specifically, IP address targeting. You're not going to, no targeting method's going to be 100% accurate. No ad network's going to be, 100% fraud free. Right. But with the specificity that we're using to target these accounts, it's next to nothing. I mean, it's about as low as you can get. So what we see is that the leads that we do get come in are really good quality, from a post-click standpoint. But then what you see is that those actual accounts that they're going after get that large lift. They'll come through other channels. Maybe they'll be more responsive to that email or that phone call. Maybe they're coming back through organically, but they're all very good quality leads just because of that mix of the targeting and just the nature of what it is.
Awesome. Let's transition from ABM to sort of the changing landscape of web cookies, especially with the recent announcements by Google. So can we sort of touch on and explain sort of what's the Google's new change, or what have they come out about this new cookieless era? And additionally, sort of what is a first and third party cookie? And maybe let's start there. Because I read a lot of it and I'm like, first party, second party, third party. I'm like, what in the world are we talking about? So let's just start with first and third party cookies. What are they?
Yeah, so a first party cookie would be, you come to the website and the cookie's placed by that same domain. So these are going to be things like, there's going to be a lot of functionality in there. Logins, settings, that kind of stuff, really. So, but short answer, first party, it's a cookie placed by the domain of the site that you're on. Third party is when they're placed by external parties. So you might have, different ad networks, stuff like that. So these will be ending up on, thousands of websites. I don't know, millions probably. Because what they're doing is they're aggregating the data from these individuals across all of these different properties. What they're using that is for direct targeting, reselling, all that sort of thing. So when you hear about cookies being blocked, the almost entirely what they're talking about is blocking third-party cookies, these sort of external tracking cookies that are not helpful to the user. I don't want to have to log in or redo my settings every time I go to a website, obviously. But do I want to be tracked by a few dozen ad networks when I go that site? Probably not. So that's the kind of stuff people are talking about blocking.
Okay, so if I understand that right, first party cookie is I've expressed an interest in this product website, product/service that somebody has, right? I went to the website and I'm like, I've expressed an interest, I'll raise my hand. Third party cookie is based on my demographics, behavioral, wherever other targeting, they think I might be interested in that product, but I have not raised my hand about it. Is that too simple?
Yeah, sort of think of it this way, right? You're logged into you're logged into some Shopify site, shopping for shoes, right? The first party cookie is what makes it so that, what you've added to cart previously, what you've looked at and your recommendations, your login, all of that stuff is just ready for you when you return. The third party cookie would be that, data provider XYZ has marked, you, user 123, as having spent whatever 3 hours looking at shoes today, and we're going to throw you into an in-market segment for shoes.
Okay. So so Google started the year with a big announcement about this cookieless future. So what was the announcement?
Which one specific? There have been a number of ones
Yes.
over the last.
So let me re-enter it and redo it. And beginning of the year, Google came out and said we're heading towards this cookieless future, and we're going to do away with third-party cookies. So what's the impact of that to a marketing agency like ourselves? Like
Well, I think
how do we adapt and go in the future with that?
Yeah, obviously. Absolutely. No, it's big, right? Because especially Chrome. I mean, Chrome's the largest browser by far. Forget what the market share is, but it's 90 something percent, I think. I mean, it's incredibly high.
Mhm.
No, probably not that high. Safari is pretty high, but it's between that and Safari, it's
Mhm.
basically everybody. Um, that's the last major holdout. Not really sure what Edge is doing. I don't keep up with Edge, but Firefox which I do like, has been without cookies for quite a while. Safari, I think, followed not too far behind Firefox. So Chrome has been the sort of last major holdout. So what this is going to do is it's going to make it incredibly difficult for these third-party data aggregators to basically come to us and sell that in-market shoe shopping list in the future. So that's going to have to be gathered in different ways, and I don't get I'm really not sure how the data aggregator industry is pivoting on that. But I can speak to how sort of Chrome and Google are working, and that's that they're sort of anonymously collecting and pooling users. So I'm not sure exactly what it looks like on their end, but in essence, you may have had a few dozen or individual users picked up for their audiences here and there. My understanding is now people are anonymized, grouped on their interest in cohorts, large cohorts. I think there are thousands. And that's now what we're targeting on the Google side. I mean, Google Meta as well have made huge changes to who can be targeted. Even going so far as, and it's caused a lot of frustration on the search side. Keyword searches below a certain threshold of volume are no longer eligible. Pulling out individual search query data is cut off quite a bit more than it used to be. I mean, if you go back years ago, you could see just about every individual search. Now sometimes I go into an account and 50% or more of the search queries behind the ads just have no data with them. And then GA4, which was a big move over the last couple of years, and I think a lot of people are only just dealing with it now or kind of mid last year, right? If you waited and sort of held off on that. This idea of data thresholding. If you try to look at, a 3-day segment by, some individual campaigns or geography or something like that, you may find that, half of your data, third of your data is just wiped out of that view because it doesn't cross those privacy thresholds. So it's had some big impacts. And it's caused us to have to adjust in a lot of ways. The flip side of that is that the AI and machine learning is getting incredibly good. So one example I give, it kind of goes back into creative insights, right? I mean, creative insights, they still are, but that was always a big part of the job, right? Clients would say, you're doing these A/B tests, you're looking at individual audiences, different individual ad copy. Tell us all about that. It was always interesting, looked great on a PowerPoint slide, right? It was something they could pass around internally into their creative teams. So it was always something that came up a lot. These days, you might have, maybe 3 search ads and, 3 performance at max ads running in a Google account. But each of them, right? Each of these search ads can have up to 15 headlines and 4 different descriptions. And then on the PMAX side of things, you're looking at these days, I think it's 5 headlines, 5 long headlines, so 10 headlines, 5 descriptions, and then also up to 20 different images. So these things are being served in tens of thousands of potential configurations. And they use artificial intelligence, machine learning, and audience signals to basically optimize them at the time of serving every individual ad auction. It's incredible. And, the fact of the matter is you just can't pull that data out. Sometimes you literally can't. It's just not accessible in the platform or via API. But other times it's just too much. There's, really no proper analysis you're going to do for it. And on the one hand, you have the less data, but on the other hand, what were you doing the A/B tests for in the first place? It was to marry the perfect, well, I shouldn't say perfect, you never get to perfect, right? But it was to iteratively optimize for the best combination of creative and targeting to hit those performance metrics that you were looking to hit. So this is doing it on the back end. So really at the end of the day, do I need to know, what a female millennial parent in Boston at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday finds to be the most relevant ad copy so that I can split that out and optimize that. Meanwhile, I'm doing the same thing for, I don't know, somebody in the Midwest suburbs, male, Gen X, right? I mean, at a certain point, it just gets too segmented to do effectively. So you have the AI to do that now.
I think that's a fascinating topic for another podcast in the future, where we'll talk about how AI is upending the agency model, or actually not just the agency model, I would say is upending advertising for everybody, and how that it's allowing us to do things at scale with better testing than we could ever do before, and sort of what's the benefits with that. So, and we'll set that up. Jay, this has been really good. I'm sure our listeners have really enjoyed this. So thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of Messages from Mars. We'll be bringing new episodes to you every month. So follow us on Instagram at Zozimus Agency and YouTube for the latest episodes and releases. Comment below with any subjects you'd like our Zoz team to cover, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.